بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. A second for the love of al-Baneen. A third for the love of Ali al-Akbar with your loudest of voices. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أفضل الذكر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Close that door if you don't mind. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله وعلى روحك وبدنك الطاهرة. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. Tonight's the night of his beloved boy Al-Akbar. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي ibn all together وعلى أولاد وعلى السلام عليكم يا شهداء كربلاء خصوصا سيدي ومولاي كفيل الهواشم قمر بني هاشم أبا الفضل العباس. السلام عليكم جميعا يا شهداء الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. أما بعد يقول الله في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يقول الله في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قد سمع الله قول التي تجادلك في زوجها وتشتكي إلى الله والله يسمع تحاوركما إن الله سميع بصير. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. My respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. The subject regarding masculinity and femininity, masculine traits, feminine traits, toxic and feminine masculinity, or feminine traits that are considered toxic, is a widely discussed area within the field of academia today. Academia, in the sense that people can graduate with degrees in gender studies these days. People are able to write dissertations, theses on the areas concerning the roles and gender roles and place and culture and orientation of the sexes that we observe today. And the development of these doctrines has seen a great submerge and wave within the pool of thought, of debate, of controversy. And us Muslims, we are no exception to the fact that Islam is held on the pedestal when it comes to discussions concerning masculinity and femininity. One big area in these fields is the role that religion plays with regards to gender roles. Many times our roles within our social, communal, and home life revolves around what our religion tells us the gender should do. And there's a wide discussion regarding to reevaluate that in the 21st century because time has evolved. Many of us have heard this before, that it's time to move on. There's a development. What you're talking about between gender roles is something archaic, medieval. You need to upgrade yourself. This concept or the conceptualization of gender roles has to be put to the side because in the world we live in today, the fast-paced dunya that we live in, this generation, we don't recognize these. We have now equated the genders to the degree where virtually a lady can accomplish ultimately almost anything a man can. And what was restricted upon the men with regards to expression of femininity is now seen as something unrestricted, something that's open, in fact invited. What is the Islamic stance on gender roles? Islamic masculinity and feminine identity. Because, like we mentioned, Islam is put on a pedestal, more so than Christianity, more so than Buddhism, more so than any other religion. We might be even potentially alongside our Judaistic cousins, because we are seen as one of the few beliefs that actually practice the doctrines that we hold today. We all understand that if there are any two religions that really dominate a lifestyle, it's these two. Judaism, where they will deprive themselves from certain types of food, even electricity, on Saturday, the Sept. And Muslims, where it's not just the Saturday, it's every other day that we will deprive ourselves from certain foods that are impermissible to consume. So kosher, but our kosher is halal throughout the entire year, 375 days of the year. Electricity, these are this and that. Whatever is deemed impermissible in these areas, we will deprive ourselves. Now today, people are reevaluating these roles within masculinity and femininity. What does Islam have to say in regards to these issues? And one of the best ways to begin looking at this is don't go look further than the Holy Quran al-Kareem. The Holy Book has expressed it very clearly, that if you want to know Allah's opinion on the way of life of men and women, here are some explanations. Some of these explanations are given straightforward. الرجال قوامون على النساء, for example. Others are coming from the angle of story example. For example, قد سمع الله قول التي تجادلك في زوجها. The conclusion is the same. You as a man, you have a responsibility. And you as a lady, you also have a responsibility. Obedient, pious, and devout to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to maintain these areas. In Islam, we notice that God brings about several examples. Whether He speaks straightforward or He provides stories. For example, we might look at an incident within Islamic history where Allah found it necessary to document a moment that might come across as very simple in today's standard, but He named an entire chapter about it. In chapter 58 of the Holy Quran, we have a chapter many have overlooked called Suratul Mujadala. This chapter, the title of it literally means the lady who complained. This chapter aims to discuss the relationship between a man and a wife when the wife is subject to abuse emotionally from her husband. This aims to show us that there's a role the husband plays, that you need to provide emotional, physical, intimate, social, and mental support to your wife. And if you do not, then Allah found it necessary to reveal in chapter condemning such behavior. There was a lady by the name of Khawla bint Tha'laba. She was a companion of the Holy Prophet of Islam, and she was married to an individual who did not give her attention. She wanted his attention, she wanted his place in her life, but he would always look at her as someone that he didn't find any interest in. Many times, many men were excited at the beginning of the relationship. After a few years, that spark cools off, that fire goes away. And so this lady sees that her husband's not giving her any attention. And he's spending his time with other people. Now, what's the common narrative today? Men in Islamic theology are allowed to marry multiple. And so that means that your wife originally can be seen as neglected because you have others to go put your attention in. Rasulullah showed us through the Holy Quran that that's not the case. If your wife feels like she is being deprived of your attention, God will condemn it in an entire chapter. In fact, He'll name the chapter, the woman that pleaded to Allah. If you find yourself in this situation, it would be impermissible for you to continue in such affairs. No pun intended, by the way. To continue in such endeavors. To pursue whatever you want under the guise of what? Halal. It's my right. Because many people bring this case. It's my right. Allah made it halal. But the Quran also speaks about وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ and live amongst them with what? With reason. Bil-ma'ruf, the etymology of that word, urf, social reason. Socially, is what you're doing accepted? No, it's not. You go from one person to the next person to the whatever, under the guise of Allah gave me the Sharia, and you're violating an entire family institution that Allah reveres so much, He calls it half of your deen. Half of your deen is that poor woman that you neglected at one point. And by the way, the men, are not the only perpetrators here. Sometimes they're the victims. Sometimes they are not subject to the attention that they want from their spouses as well. And so in this situation, he is on the receiving end. Many people don't speak about that. I mean, if the modern discussion today is equality of the genders, where's our equality when the guy's on the receiving end of not getting the comfort he wants, not getting the attention necessary, not feeling like he is validated? But these are areas of other fields. The common issue today is not that. It exists. But the common issue is when the weaker of the two physically, women are very powerful, but physically you might have the advantage. So you can rule with an iron fist and she doesn't know what to do in that situation. In that relative situation, God revealed a chapter. You're allowed. There are circumstances, and by the way, our maraja today have given their 2 cents in this case. Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Sistani, one of the only maraja, by the way, who says if you seek a temporary relationship while you are in a permanent relationship, and many will say, why are you bringing this up? It's the biggest deal in America, believe you me. It's the biggest deal here. Why? Culturally, it's motivated. Culturally, you're considered a what? A G. You're considered a boss. You go around, you sleep around and whatever. The inverse, with regards to promiscuity, is considered for the sisters or a lady that goes from one, even if it's a halal relationship, from one relationship to another under the halal means, well, she's corrupted at that point. That's haram. Sayyid Ali Sistani, may Allah prolong his life, says if you want to establish another relationship while you are in a permanent one, you have to get her permission. Now what woman's going to say yes? You have to get her permission. Why? He sees that the institution of marriage is so valuable that if you were to go open another one without her knowledge and permission, it would violate the sanctity. Then that sanctity is more awla to be protected than your desire and your haqq to go find another relationship. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. Because there are 2 things, and this is a study in the field of usul al-fiqh called bahth al-tarattub. When you go and study in the Islamic seminary, there's a concept called tarattub, meaning important and more important, muhim and aham. He's like, it's important that you exercise your rights as a man. You have every right to do what Allah has allowed you to do. But what's more important is you maintain the sanctity of your current relationship. Muhim is that you exercise your rights. You're right, you're allowed to do what you want to do within the parameters of Sharia al-Islamiyya. But the aham, the more important is what? That you don't tarnish an institution that God sees as your entire deen, for goodness sake. That is more important. Come to the view of that particular marja and scholarly interpretation, he says get her permission first because the institution is contingent on whether or not you get her approval. These fields of gender studies are not discussed, unfortunately. Why aren't they discussed? You know what they do discuss? We discuss sometimes that the man can marry multiple and the poor woman, whether she likes it or not, she has to shut up. We discuss that there are some fringe interpretations on physical discipline. Interpretations regarding chapter 4 verse 34 that وَاللَّاتِ تَخَافُونَ نُشُوزُهُنَّ فَعِظُهُنَّ وَهْجُرُهُنَّ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ وَاضْرِبُوهُنَّ. These are verses in the Holy Quran that seem to discuss a type of discipline from those of your spouses, O believing men, whom you fear some form of indecency. Then open up and talk. If that does not suffice and is not sufficient, then separate your bedding. Let there be a distance so that maybe one misses the other's company. It's like, okay, let's make this up. Let's see what's going on here. Let's let bygones be bygones. If that doesn't work, there's the interpretation of وَضْرِبُوهُنَّ. And the scholars have debated. Ya Allah, how much have they debated? Does it mean beat? Beating doesn't fit with the whole pattern of the Quran of diyah, that you will owe blood money if you actually hurt someone. Then what kind of a beat can I do where I don't actually hurt them? You have to pay blood money if the skin turns as pink, as little as pink. I owe them like money at that point. If I hurt someone by pinching them. In the fiqh today, open any minhaj al-salihin from any of our maraji'. Open the minhaj al-salihin of Shaykh al-Tusi. No, forget Shaykh al-Tusi, of Imam al-Sadiq. Open any one of these. The fiqh works. If you turn the skin pink, there's a fine you have to pay. It's called blood money. Diyah. You owe this blood money. Then, how can I physically discipline without making sure the skin doesn't turn pink? So what am I doing at the end of the day? Is that even a beat? So then there's another interpretation we have to entertain. There are other ahadith Rasulullah explains that maybe perhaps the daraba could also mean some form of discipline that involves potentially a distancing. People like to say we're going to see, moving on a little bit, etc., before entertaining divorce. These are all fields within Islamic thought. But in modern gender studies, within academia, papers are written that Islam is a religion that allows for the physical disciplining of one spouse, which is not right. It is not fair. Yeah, we have other proposals, other suggestions. When you culminate all of these point of views, you really do get a misogynistic religion. I admit, you really do get a misogynistic religion. When all you do is on purpose, you look for these fringe interpretations. And without even opening up the world of tafsir, you just become a scholar bil-ra'i. Tafsir bil-ra'i, in your own opinion. I'm sorry, who are you? Because last I checked, we have a grand marja' who told us that seek first a permission here, look at alternative views here. Islam says what? The Quran says, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, live within reason. So now we have a narration that says, and this is ijma', by the way, this tradition is very well accepted. And it does make a lot of reasonable sense that the wife has to be obedient to her husband, and the husband needs to be obedient to his wife as well, and that they do not violate each other's rights. But in that situation, what if the husband has an opinion that the wife doesn't like, and in that moment, she feels her rights are being violated? When her rights are violated, she's like, well, the Quran said I need to be obedient to my husband. Of course, who else are you going to be obedient to? The neighbor, the this or that, the husband. You've decided to be in a relationship with this man, and he's also obedient to you. But what if he says you are not allowed to leave the house? I'll pull a hadith, and I'll say, here, the angels do la'na until you get back to the house. Oh, you're in trouble. Where's your non-misogynistic deen all of a sudden? How do you explain that? You look in the Holy Quran and live among them with reason. I hear a complaint one time that I heard regarding a lady who says, my dad is sick and I need to visit him, and my husband deprived me of visiting him. Why? Because this is my right. What if I need to have you by me to entertain that intimacy which is my right? Which indeed it is his right. But is it reasonable what you're doing at this moment? This is her father, for example. He was saying, no, I don't care what she thinks. It's my right, it's my right. And literally, she feels that she is subject to oppression. If you were to present the ayah of the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, in Surah Al-Nisa, that says, and live among them with reason, does that conflict with the ayah? Was there any reason here? Did you sit and listen, or did you just let yourself become this brute all of a sudden? Some will say that that ayah nullifies all areas of unreasonable injustice and oppression. So you have to be someone of reason all of a sudden now. It's a principle. Allah didn't say, for example, and if they want to leave, let them leave. And if they want to go and just change something that they want to change, but they have to leave the house, then let them go. Allah is not going to list every single reason, otherwise the Quran will become volumes on volumes. He gave you a principle. When this principle is violated, you have stepped your boundaries. In this example, we find chapter 58 of the Holy Quran. Surah Al-Mujadila. A lady complained to Allah. Allah's like, you know what? Ayah of the Holy Quran? No. Chapter of the Holy Quran. Khawla bint Tha'laba, her husband did not give her the attention she deserves. What? What did he not give her? He protected her. He gave her money. The Quranic ayah beautifully says, chapter 4, verse 34, الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. Men are the maintainers of women in areas of protection and finances. Yes, gender roles exist. I admit they exist. Is that so bad? In the labor-intensive world today, have your wife go and work for you while you just sit and lounge, and you're capable of working? That's effeminate of a man. That's a disgrace to your own masculinity. Yeah, let her work while I just sit and relax. Now, it's all circumstantial. Maybe the man is unable to, not capable of. And in that relative household, the dynamics have to change. Okay, that's circumstantial. وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. The urf here dictates that the guy is unable to contribute. Therefore, we completely reason with that. But if you have full capability, no excuse, and you're letting your woman work in these areas, in these streets, while you are fit, Allah has blessed you, you have rizq, oh, she can. Who am I going to stop her? But she's working double time for your laziness. Be a man, go out and maintain her by making sure she doesn't have to if she doesn't want to. If she has to, it's a different situation. Maybe you're unable, maybe you're unfit. Finances are not so well, Corona hit, this and that, we both have to get a job. I got hurt. She's the only one. That's totally fine. You within reason. Now in this chapter of the Holy Quran, this guy was doing everything for his wife except giving her the emotional support that she wanted. Just that, emotional support, intimate emotional support, social, sit down with us, you don't even talk to me. He would then say, you are like my mother's back to her. And that was a big insult. Zihar, and this word is used in the same chapter. He's like, to me, you are like the dhahr, the back, of my own mother. There's nothing exciting to that, so I'm just going to not bother with you. She's like, why would you do that? He's like, I give you everything you want. Khalas, what do you want from me? She's like, no, but that's a disgrace to me. As your wife who is here to protect you and safeguard you, obedient and devout, that's not fair. Like, everything you want, I gave. What else do you want? She went to Rasulullah and complained. No one would hear her complaints except Rasulullah. Listen to this. Rasulullah, with all his glory and majesty, God's final messenger, makes this time. Here's a lady complaining about the relationship in her house. She's not a victim of abuse, physical abuse. Emotional she is though. And many of us have neglected that. We always tend to look at, if you put your finger on my daughter, watch, I'm going to take her back suddenly from that household. Or if you decide to be rude and abrasive. What about when he is being neglecting to her? When he is being complacent? Is that not a big deal? We only look at one form of abuse, not the other. She's emotionally abused. Hey, she doesn't get enough attention from him. Many people say, oh, who cares? Ladies always want attention. Well, that's misogynistic all of a sudden. This religion was built on reason, not priority of the sexes. Why? Because Allah revealed in the Holy Quran, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha. Not, we have created you more superior in one gender over the other. We created you from male and female. The discussion of sexism, throw it against the wall. There is no superiority. Instantly go away. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلٍ. Nations and tribes. Racism, now throw it away. Look, Allah's going through all of these social issues we live on a day-to-day basis and we see today. إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. The most close to Allah from among you are the ones that are most God-conscious of Rabbul Alameen. Not the male, not the female. But the modern dynamic today dictates that there are responsibilities both have to fulfill. Both have to fulfill. She went and complained. Emotional support, something people find as very petty. You're going to waste the Prophet's time? It's like, imagine today someone has a poor dynamic with their husband at home, and she goes to the Grand Marja' somewhere in Qom or Najaf, right? And over this, the Marja' makes like a whole hour, talk to me, what's going on? He's not giving me the attention. Some people will look down upon that. Why are you wasting the man's time? But that's not the case. Our scholars have their doors open for our wonderful believers practicing, and they see any area that is a blemish in their relationship, feel free to talk to these wonderful leaders of ours, brothers and sisters. The Prophet of Islam was that example. He looked at her and he said, Ya Khawla bint Tha'laba, go back to your husband and tell him right now, this is the moment Allah has revealed the chapter 58 of the Holy Quran, called the chapter of the lady who complained. Don't think no one heard you. And that's the worst, by the way. Because there are people that live their lives thinking no one can hear my issues. Who's going to hear my problem? Due to the backlash, I can come out, but there's backlash I worry about. My family thinks I'm living like on a rainbow with this relationship. I don't want them to know that something bad is actually going on the side, that he's going here, he's going there, or she's going here, she's going there. I can't talk. That's going to look bad on me. What kind of man are you when your wife is like this? What kind of woman are you when your husband is doing this? What can I say? Who do I go to? Rabbul Alameen says, I hear you. قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهِ. Allah has heard. By the way, one ayah, 3 times Allah says, I hear, I hear, I hear. قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّتِي تُجَادِلُكَ فِي زَوْجِهَا وَتَشْتَكِي إِلَى اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ يَسْمَعُ تَحَاوُرَكُمَا إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ بَصِيرٌ. Allah hears the complaints that you, O lady, make when you make that complaint regarding your husband. وَتَشْتَكِي إِلَى اللَّهِ, and you complain to Allah regarding it. Wallah, this is something, we say wallah sometimes, and we overuse it, really. It's like, wallah, I'll beat you in volleyball. Wallah, I'll do this. Wallah, wallah. Relax. Just make your point. Wow, swearing so much in Allah's name. Chill. Wallah, wallah, wallah. But sometimes, one time they say, Amirul Mu'mineen, Salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. Had an issue raised against him. His shield was taken by a Jewish man at that time. And the Imam said to him, you know that's my shield that I use in war? He's like, no, it's mine now. He's like, okay. He's like, how about you prove it's your shield? The Imam took him to court basically at that time. And the Imam was the Khalifa. And the Qadi was like, what are you doing? Ya Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ya Amir al-Mu'minin, why do you come to the court? Just get rid of this guy. You're the Khalifa. He's like, la, there's an order in my system. Let's go through the justice system like anyone. I'm not above the law like this. Look at Amir al-Mu'minin, subhanAllah. There's a system, we have to follow the order. I'm not going to be this whole dictator. It applies to you, it doesn't apply to me. Let me go through the process. He's like, okay. In the Islamic court of law, we need to swear by the Quran first, by Allah first. Imam Amir al-Mu'minin said, no, it's not necessary. It's like, why is it not necessary? He's like, nah, this is a petty thing to say wallah for. So man, you're going to court and to say wallah in that situation, Amir al-Mu'minin sees it as not necessary. Then what about all these other situations many of our guys use wallah for? If you find yourself in court, Ahlul-bayt say it's not necessary, it's not that big of a deal to invoke Allah's name. That's a big deal. It's like life or death in that situation. Oh, it just took my shield. So we have to stop using Allah's name in vain. But what about when Allah says wallah? That's an even bigger deal. Like I don't even know the word big works in this situation. Magnanimous. Where mercy is at the pedestal. That's called magnanimity. Magnanimous behavior. Wallahu yasma'u tahawurukuma. Don't think you are a neglected woman in your home. Your husband just takes you and deals with you and manipulates you. And make sure that he is the one that has the power and no one can even hear you complain. I hear. Because inna Allah sami'un basir. Because I am all hearing, all seeing, and I even see what's going on. At that moment, Rasulullah approached her husband and he said, you have to stop saying these words to her. You are like my mother's back. No, give her attention. وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. And I wish gender studies today would focus on these areas. No, they don't. You know what they focus on? They'll find the Islamic expert who goes on Fox News and he says, let me tell you about that religion. That religion doesn't even know Arabic. And he starts explaining to me what my religion is all about. Well, mashallah, when did you become an Islamic scholar of the highest caliber and you guys neglected all these other ulama, mashallah, and you went to that guy who thinks that when you die there are 72 waiting for them and that hadith is non-existent. Yani, for the love of God. If you're going to have someone speak about Islam, how about you be a scholar of Islam? Isn't that common sense? I want to bring someone to talk about the crisis of the pandemic. I get a conspiracy theorist who has no knowledge in infectious diseases, and he's going to speak about I'm not going to listen to that. And why am I bringing people who hate Islam to talk about Islam? So what does that mean on our end? You have to be more active as a Muslim. You have to work today. Today, don't let other people speak on your behalf. You speak. If you remain silent, they will speak for your sake. And if they don't even speak, bad Muslims will speak for your sake. How many people saw the atrocities that happened in Iraq in 2014, the atrocities in September 11, and fell victim into thinking that that was what Islam really is because they had the loudest microphones. You should have a loud microphone. Where do you live at the end of the day? You live in a place, alhamdulillah, where you're given the opportunity to voice your opinion. This is literally called the freedom of bloody speech. Speak. Don't let those speak on your behalf. But you know what you have to do first? You have to learn. You have to educate yourself. Woe on the one who thinks they know and begins to speak. Not know. Begin knowing. Learn, then talk, such that when you're confronted with you misogynistic, your prophet did this, your prophet did that, you could give a reply. Stop being at the receiving end. Stop being a victim of Islamophobia academically. You know, there's actual terrorizing people, and then there's academic terrorism. We're more victims of academic terrorism than we are of the alternative. The narrative, the Battle of Karbala wasn't just in the 61st year after Hijrah, on the 10th of October. It's happening today. But it's not with swords. You know what it's done with? Microphones, pens, and media. That's the playground, and that's the battlefield. Who is in charge? Who is making more effort? Who has the bull by the horns? That's where the ma'rakah is. That's where the war is now. It's still happening. I remember there was a nice description that showed one of these Iranian painters, mashallah, they're very talented, where, you know, Hassan Ruh al-Amin, the man who paints the Renaissance-esque paintings of the Ahlul-bayt these days that we're seeing them, very beautiful paintings. He painted a piece that really struck me personally. He drew a picture of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam laying down wounded. Salamullahi alayh. And the enemy is holding swords, arrows, spears, microphones, and pens. Because that's the war we're dealing with today. Who has the biggest voice? You control the narrative. That's not why, it's not a surprise why we see the likes of even Lady Zainab outspoken. No, I'm going to control the narrative. Just because you are the loudest voice, I'm going to be more dominant than that. We see this chapter of the Holy Quran show us that even in this situation that people see as very fickle, minor and petty, Allah hears it. Do not think that that woman's complaint in the back of the room where she has nowhere to go, and she literally has no, Allah is on her side. When Allah is on your side, nothing can destroy you. But when Allah is not on your side, no matter how strong you are, no matter how safeguarded you are going to be finished. If you think you are the most strong, if Allah is not with you, you're worthless. And if you are the most weak and frail, so long as you got Allah with you, nothing can shake you. Even some of these quotes I hear today, I even see some people tattoo them. I'm not advocating for that, but I think these are some beautiful quotes. Don't tell God how big your problems are. Tell your problems how big your God is. Ya Allah, I don't care why state how I am, how I'm feeling. If this is in your rida, I win at the end of the day. Because even if I'm struck in the mihrab of Masjid al-Kufa, I am the victim, I still say fustu. I won. Wa Rabbil Kaaba. Even if I'm laying down in the sands of Nainawa, I still say, raising my hand over my brother who had just given his life, Allahumma taqabbal minna hadhal qurban. And on a day like today, the most chivalrous, upright, proper masculine example where he maintained the equilibrium of that beautiful balance, social, familial, and to the community, Aliul Akbar does it like no one else, subhanallah. This man, subhanallah, born in the 33rd year after Hijrah, was about 7 years old when his grandfather, Ahlul-Hassan Amir al-Mu'mineen, was martyred. We're making him 28 years old in Karbala. Aliul Akbar. There was a moment, Umar ibn Sa'ad says, where are the cousins of Yazid, Amir al-Mu'mineen? Let them come, let them come. We will offer them sanctuary. Ali Akbar says, is this foolish man talking to me? Me? Because he understands the message. What is he saying to him? Ali Akbar is the culmination of two very prominent families. Banu Thaqif, because his mother is Layla bint Abi Murrah bin Urwa bin Mas'ud al-Thaqafi. Banu Thaqif, renowned family, we can think of many Thaqafis. Then from her maternal side, she's Layla bint Maymuna bint Abi Sufyan ibn Harb. Yani Layla's uncle is Muawiyah. Layla's first cousin, Yazid ibn Muawiyah. Even if you look at Abi Faraj al-Asfahani in his material, not a Shia collection of traditions, but he mentions, Muawiyah says to his people in front of him in the court of Sham, who do you think is awla bil khilafati minni? Who do you think deserves the khilafah more than I do? Who do you guys think? They all said, no one. You are the most qualified for this seat to be the khalifa. He's like, no, you're actually all wrong. Abi Faraj al-Asfahani mentioned this, by the way. Wonderful scholar from that worldview. He maintained a lot of traditions. Some of them we reject, others of them we reflect on. He says, no, not me. Don't think I'm the most deserving of this. It's Ali ibn al-Hussein. Many people don't know that. Ali al-Akbar, Muawiyah says he actually deserves this khilafah. How many of us have thought about that for a second? Why? He says because Ali al-Akbar has three things. Number one, he is the product of the bravery of Bani Hashim. His grandfather's Ali ibn Abi Talib. No, don't say anymore. That's it. Just stop right there. His granddad, Ali, khalas. Nothing can stand in his way. That's one. Two, he has the legacy of the Thaqafi side too, because his mother. And he has the generosity, quote unquote, he says it, generosity of Bani Umayyah, because his mom's maternal side is Abi Sufyan. So he has all of these three qualities. He's actually more deserving of the seat. Imam Hussein, on the day of Ashura, saw that his son was being told, go to that side, because he's related to Yazid from that side. Technically, his mom's first cousins, right? So in that situation, they said, we'll give you asylum, amnesty. Yazid, it'll be difficult to have you killed. He doesn't want a relative of his killed. Come, leave your dad. Aliul Akbar was so enraged. You ask me, you have the nerve to say, leave my dad alone and go with Yazid and have him murdered. Who do you take me for? He was so engulfed with rage. That is why he was the first from the family to fight. How mad was he? How dare you come and tell me abandon my dad because of family relationship that is worthless to me? Aliul Akbar, when he went out to fight, Imam Hussein raised his hands. Tab'an, he actually tried to get his dad's permission. He couldn't speak about Abdullah. The companions, he says, may Allah be with you. Tawakkal ala Allah. Ma hiya illa al-jannah. A few moments, Jannah will be there. For Aliul Akbar, silent. Who can send their firstborn to war like that? And Aliul Akbar is his self, is his nafs. It's hard. So Aliul Akbar says to his dad, let me go. Let me at them. How dare they speak to me that way and speak to you that way? In a few moments, inshallah, if you can bring those back. He says, how dare they speak to me? Inshallah, the lights. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Says, how dare they speak to me that way? Offering me protection and leaving Aba Abdullah. I want to be there. Let me be first. Imam Hussein says, quiet. He considers the silence of his father as acceptance. Some of us might remember even the marriage proposal to Lady Zahra, and Rasulullah sees Amir al-Mu'mineen offer, and then he sees that Sayyidah Zahra is quiet. And what does Rasulullah say? Sukutuha ridaha. Her silence is her acceptance. Imam Hussein stays silent. Aliul Akbar interprets that as a yes, but he doesn't have the heart to say go. And by the way, Aliul Akbar, we just said earlier, he's the culmination of these, of which people would die to have an ounce of that legacy. He goes. He fights. As he goes, Imam Hussein raises his blessed hands to the heavens and he says, Allahumma ishhad ala ha'ula al-qawm faqad baraza ilayhim ghulam ashbah al-nas bi rasulik khalqan wa khuliqan wa mantiqa. Oh Allah, bear witness upon these people that the most to resemble your Prophet, Rasulullah Muhammad, has just went out to fight them. The most to resemble your Prophet in his physical attributes, in his qualities and characteristics, and in his mantiq and logic and vision. Physical, characteristics, qualities, and mantiq and logic. Aba Abdullah says these are three things he has, no one else has. Aliul Akbar. The most to resemble Rasulullah. We see in the hadith that one day a Christian man came to Medina al-Munawwara and he wanted to embrace Islam. The people in Medina said, you are not allowed to come to the masjid of Rasulullah, even though that's not the right rule, by the way. Rasulullah, remember, he brought Bani Najran, the Christians. Rasulullah was open to discuss with other people from other religions. The Imam al-Sadiq discussed with atheists. Rasulullah discussed with these people. They said, no, you're not allowed. The guy said, no, I am Muslim. I became Muslim in my dreams, the Christian man says. They're like, what do you mean in your dreams? He's like, I dreamt, I'm a Christian, I'm a devout Christian. I love Isa ibn Maryam. But somehow in my dream, one day I saw Jesus came up to me, said to me that you think you're a Christian? I'm Muslim. Go embrace Islam, what are you waiting for? Go to the Prophet of Islam and pledge your allegiance and become Muslim before you die. He woke up, he's like, I need to be a Muslim. Jesus told me. He goes to Medina, they say, well, the Prophet has died. You're a bit late. The man says, who can I go that reminds me of him? Because I saw him in my dream too. Jesus said, go to Muhammad, and he saw him in his dream. Salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. They said, look, he died. What do you want now? He's like, give me to the closest to resemble him. They take him to Imam al-Hussein. Imam Hussein receives them with open arms. Not this, you Christian, you that. No, come. Let me speak with you. You're interested in Islam, and that's how we should all be open. Open. Don't be that closed door policy, for goodness sake. Who do you think you are? Rasulullah opened his doors to even the mushrik and the kafir. Be more open. I know people today, they may be even Shi'i, but have a different interpretation on history. Get the heck out of my face. How dare you're the people that believe in this, that practice this, that sha'ira, no, but stop. We are Muslims, brothers and sisters. Khalas, we're not even Muslims, forget that. Are we not equals in humanity? As Amir al-Mu'mineen says, النَّاسُ صِدْمَانِ أَمَّا أَخٌ لَكَ فِي الدِّينِ أَوْ نَظِيرٌ لَكَ فِي الْخَلْقِ. People are your brothers in religion. If they relate to you on that, they're your brothers. If not, they're your equals in insaniyya and humanity. See them for that. Imam Hussein receives them. And he says, tell me about your dream. He says, in my dream I saw Isa ibn Maryam. He said, become a Muslim, embrace that man, give him allegiance. I looked and it was your prophet. He said, but they tell me that he is dead now. He says, do you want to actually see someone that resembles him the most? He says, yes. He called Ali Akbar, come here. Ali al-Akbar came in. The hadith says he was dressed up where his face was covered and concealed. He opened it. That man, the hadith maintains that he instantly fainted. Subhanallah. He fainted and he woke up. When he came back, Imam Hussein said to him, what do you say? He says, Subhanallah, he looks exactly like the Prophet in my dreams. Ali al-Akbar, from his physical attributes, resembled Rasulullah. Then his qualities and characteristics, very briefly. When Ali al-Akbar was living with his mother in the city of Kufa, Layla, he would tell his mom, oh mother, always take the logs of wood, and if you're going to cook, put it in the chimney and cook. She would say, why do you insist I cook like that? He says, so that the smoke can come out and those who are outside can see that we are cooking. Maybe a hungry person will knock on our door. Subhanallah. Mantiqan wa khuliqan wa karamatan. Khalqan wa khuliqan wa mantiqa. He says, so that people who are hungry can see that we're cooking, we could probably give them some food. Look at the qualities of Rasulullah manifested in this man. Subhanallah. His vision. How does he resemble Rasulullah in his mantiq? Notice the following in the battle. Ali al-Akbar goes out to fight. Imam Hussein makes a dua. Layla is watching in the distance. As soon as her son goes to the battlefield, she looks at him and she can no longer keep her eyes on her son. What mother can watch her son fight against thousands of men? So what does she do? Instead of looking at Ali al-Akbar, who does she look at? Imam Hussein. And she would gauge how Ali al-Akbar is doing and performing on the battle by the expression of Aba Abdullah. If he was still, that means Ali is doing well. If his face turned pale, that means someone came close to Ali al-Akbar. The fight went on. The hadith says 200, over 200 of the enemies of Allah fell down by the sword of Ali al-Akbar. What a fighter. He goes back to Imam al-Hussein and he begins complaining to him. He says, Father, this is weighing down on me. I am so thirsty. The armor is heavy. The heat is hot. And the thirst is unbearable. Imam Hussein, hadith say, he told Ali, you feel your thirst is heavy? Come and feel my thirst. And they say in the hadith that Imam Hussein told him, feel my tongue, just feel it. Ali al-Akbar said, Subhanallah, Wallah, I thought I was thirsty. In fact, I am the one who's quenched, and you are the real thirsty one. Your tongue is like a dry rock. Tongue is like a dry rock, brothers and sisters. That's someone who has no water in their system at all. And that gave him the motivation. Who am I to complain in this situation when you, my father, are more thirsty than I am? Ali al-Akbar then gains that strength from that moment. He goes to the battlefield and he begins to introduce himself. This shows you the mantiq and logic of Ali al-Akbar. He begins to say, أنا علي ibn al-Husayn ibn Ali. نحن وبيت الله أولى بالنبي والله لا يحكم فينا ابن الدعي أطعنكم بالرمح حتى ينثني أضربكم بالسيف حتى يلتوي ضرب غلام هاشمي علوي. I am Ali, the son of Hussein, the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Wallah, by Allah, the son of adultery and impurity will not rule over us. I will strike you with my spear until it bends, and I will lunge at you and slash you with my sword until it breaks. The strike of a Hashimi and the strike of an Alawi. You forgot Ali, he came back today. Aliul Akbar goes and fights, and he fights valiantly on his sword, brothers and sisters. As he is fighting, Layla begins to watch Imam Hussein's face. She is observing and observing until she sees the face of Imam Hussein become depressed suddenly. She says, Ya Aba Abdullah, what's happening to my beloved Ali? He says to her, Layla, go back to your tent. A man who is worth 1,000 men has just came out to fight him. Make dua, Ya Layla, for the dua of a mother is always mustajab. She goes to the tent, and many narrations begin to describe the following moment. She raises her hands and says, Ya Rad Yusuf, إلى يعقوب اللهم بغربة أبي عبد الله اللهم بعطش الحسين يا راد يوسف إلى يعقوب رد علي ولدي علي. Oh, the one who returned Yusuf to Yaqub. Oh Allah, on behalf of the atash and thirst of Abi Abdullah and his loneliness, return my boy Ali to me. That moment Aliul Akbar returned back to his mother. This time he returned to his father. Imam Hussein said, Ya Ali, go back to your mother and Auntie Zainab, tell them your farewells. This will be the last time you return. Aliul Akbar embraces his mother. He embraces Zainab, he embraces Abul Fadl, and he finally embraces Hussein. He goes to the field, he charges at them, he begins to fight them courageously until they see that they are no match for him one-on-one. So they send as many as they can, fields and leagues and waves of soldiers. They begin to rain arrows at Aliul Akbar, the most to resemble Rasulullah. They begin to say, كأنه فيلق بدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. He is like a full moon shining and fighting us like this, as if he is the moon radiating. Is it Ali or is it Muhammad that just returned? Who is this man? And he begins to fight each one that he breaks down and brings away. He says, Allahu Akbar. He begins to fight and fight until the arrows pile on his back. Salamullahi alayh. And one man approaches Ali and lunges his spear towards his side. Salamullahi alayh. Another man comes at him. They begin to attack his horse. Aliul Akbar clenches on his horse. The horse doesn't know what to do. It's becoming scared and hysteric. It takes Aliul Akbar to the side of the enemy. Running that side, they all begin to charge at him. They all begin slashing. He doesn't know where the horse is taking him. He's holding on to him. Then they all, one after the other, begin to cut at Aliul Akbar until he fell off his horse. When he fell, he didn't say Assalamu alayk. He says, Abata alayka minni salam. I don't want to say Assalamu alayk because that means you have to say wa alayka salam. No, don't even disturb yourself. Oh Father, upon you is my salam. Imam Hussein ran to Aliul Akbar. He got rid of the enemies of Allah. He saw his beloved Ali on the floor. He saw the face of Rasulullah drenched with blood. He held on to him. He said to him, Bunay Ali, my beloved son Ali, after your death, what is my purpose of life? Where is the pleasure of this dunya after you leave? When he turned him to the side, he saw that he was holding something on his chest. He moved his hands. He saw the dagger lunge right into the heart of Aliul Akbar. Imam Hussein, they say he turned his face to Najaf. He said, Ya Ali, you had your Khaybar to lift and you lift it. I can't lift this dagger. Come and help me. He looked at his son Ali. He saw him smiling for one moment. Then he saw him crying another. He said, Habibi Ali, why do you laugh and why do you cry? He says, Father Hussein, I smile because I see Rasulullah in Jannah. I am between dunya and Akhirah, and I see him holding a pail of water. He says that when you drink, Ya Ali, you will never go thirsty ever again. And here is one reserved for your father Hussein. As soon as he comes, I smile for that, but I cry because I see next to him Fatima. I see Fatima to Zahra. She begins to notice that each time you cry, a teardrop falls. She smacks her face on She says, Ya Aba Abdullah, whenever you draw a tear, she smacks her face calling, Oh, walada, wa Husseina. مأتم الحسين يا حسين. يا حسين.